She Says So, brought to you by S&S Passage Supermarket and thebesttoys.com.
She's unstoppable. She's got the power to break the chains and make it louder. She says so.
Welcome to She Says So, a show where we're having conversations with women who are shaping our society or dedicating their lives to the betterment of those in their space, for the country, and you may be quite surprised, for animal welfare as well. Sita Kuravilla is the chairman of the TTSPCA. You may have heard of the organization, the yeoman service that the volunteers do, but also the fact that they've brought the conversation on animal welfare to mainstream media. In fact, they may be championing changes in legislation, and they've been successful in raising a number of issues in the public. In fact, when you think about fireworks now, you can't think about letting go of the light show without the impact of animals. An organization such as the one that Sita heads really has to be credited with raising awareness about the way animals are treated in this country. Sita, how are you?
Oh, fine, thank you, and thanks for having me on the program.
Thank you for coming. I know, sometimes I want to say congratulations, because a lot of times I don't think, particularly work that starts with just a love of service and a love for better humanity, goes so uncredited in our country. And I want to say congratulations and thank you on behalf of Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you. And thanks on behalf of all the other people who are working hard to keep the organization going.
How did you start with animal welfare? How did you get involved? Did you have pets? Did you decide, I've had enough of this?
Well, I always had pets, animals growing up around the home and so on, and I always felt a strong empathy and feeling for them. But I also studied zoology and so on at the university. And so I was really interested in all animals of all different kinds. And, you learned about all different species and behavior and so on. But really, the animal behavior, the animal welfare side of things started in 1985. And I was just, there was a little dog that was very ill that kept coming outside of my home every night. And I approached the TSPCA for help. And they sent 2 volunteers, and they came and helped me to catch the dog and take it in. And so I became interested in the organization and started to volunteer. And then I discovered the real need for assistance for animals in the country and how dire the situation was.
When you talk about how dire, so you gave the personal story of this dog coming outside your home. You did work, I know you worked as a consultant with the agriculture sector. You studied particularly in the realm of animal welfare. But when you talk about the dire need, what was the state of animal welfare in this country when you first got involved with this organization?
It was, as I said, it was dire. I joined the TSPCA. It was a pretty small setup. Based at Roxy Roundabout. I can't remember how many kennels there, but it was pretty basic. And there was very little general information about animal care and so on in the country. And I think everyone was used to seeing stray dogs all over the place. That was just the norm. So the facility used to take in unwanted animals, and it was always overcrowded. The level of care that was provided was pretty basic. There really wasn't enough money. And you just saw a lot of suffering. And it was really the suffering of animals that drove me to want to assist more and help more. And also not just to continue along the way we were going, but to see whether we could make changes in the country and develop the whole approach to improving the care of animals.
What is the most rewarding part for you in this journey personally?
I think there are several factors. I mean, one, of course, is improving the level of care that animals receive. Another one is meeting a core group of people who are like-minded, because really I like to work with a team of people. I mean, I'm certainly not managing to do this on my own. I have certain skills, but it's impossible without working with a team of people who have other skills as well. And so I think it's really important in a field like this to have support from like-minded people, because it's emotionally taxing. It can be quite distressing and difficult to cope with. So I think one aspect was meeting other like-minded people. And another side of things is seeing the increasing interest in young people in the country in animal welfare, and wanting to volunteer and participate. So that's really encouraging.
The role to now take such an active part, because you had a career before this organization, but we joked about it that most people simply know you in this
Yeah.
capacity. When you talk about the journey and what led you here, do you feel as though you've given up something for this?
Well, I mean, I worked in a full-time job. I'm a marine biologist, and I worked first with the government and then as a consultant until about 2010, I think it was. And along the way, I also formed with a group another organization called the Animal Welfare Network, because most of us had some association with the TTSPCA, which was a very shelter-oriented organization. And we realized the need for taking services to people rather than just expecting people to come to us. So in 2000, we formed the Animal Welfare Network. And I think that organization made a huge leap forward in that we took services for spaying and neutering and education out to the public.
Yes.
And we believed very much in partnering with the veterinary community, with the government if we could. We believe very much in trying to collaborate to take animal welfare forward.
What is a typical role, a typical day of the chairman of the TTSPCA?
Well, I don't know if there's a typical day, because you basically try and do whatever needs to be done. So some days you just help out in the office, because it's really busy and people are coming in, the phones are ringing, a lot of help is needed. If we have a spay clinic on, clients are coming in, so some days you just help out and you do whatever's necessary. Other days you might work on written requests for assistance, because we always need funding. And other days, again, you're writing comments on some proposed legislation or some new development that you think is impacting the animal welfare.
There's no typical day.
There isn't really a typical day.
Let's talk about the memorable achievements that you think, throughout this journey, from the volunteerism to coming in to now your role as chairman.
Well, I think there have been great achievements on behalf of all of those of us involved. As far as the Animal Welfare Network goes, we are the ones who really introduced and pushed the spaying in the country. And that is really the humane form of population control of animals. And in 2005, we are the ones who really pushed that through, collaborating with vet clinics throughout the country, and brought a program in that continues right through up to this day and has been adopted by a number of other organizations. So we're really proud of that. And we also developed an education program, a professional one that goes into primary schools. And the children love the program, and it makes a huge difference. And those achievements were recognized by Humane Society International. We've attended some of their big meetings, we've presented, and we were even made animal welfare advocates by Humane Society. So we were really proud at that time. And as far as TSPCA goes, I think we have moved TSPCA in the direction of being a really professional organization with best practice in shelter management. And we've been visited by international organizations who consider the organization well run and the shelter well run. So I think we're really proud of that.
Now we have to take a short break. When we come back, we continue our conversation with Sita Kuruvilla. She's dedicated her life to raising awareness on animal welfare and the rights of animals, those who can't speak for themselves, basically, or living entities who cannot speak for themselves. Stay with us.
The best for your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, and bathtubs. Visit us in store at first floor Movingtown Port of Spain, Forces flagship MacBean, Eastgate Mall Trin City, or shop online now. And remember, we have the best for your baby at the best prices.
SNS Passage Supermarket comes to St. Mary's Freeport. With the wide aisles of variety, quality you can trust, a community hub, and loyalty rewards. When I say they have everything, they have everything from your fresh produce, your wines and spirits, your butcher meat, seafood, bakery, you name it, they have it. And with these prices, trust me, you're guaranteed to save some money in your pocket. So come on down and shop today at the brand new SNS Passage Supermarket, St. Mary's Freeport.
Are you looking for a customizable studio space with green and widescreen cyclorama and professional production equipment to carry out your next big project? SGP Studios is the perfect fit for you. TNT's largest studio space with an overhead lighting grid and sound treated, perfect for television commercials, music videos, television programs, social media content, and film productions. We also have a wide range of production equipment available for rental. You can choose from a selection of Netflix approved cameras, modern lighting equipment, professional audio gear, 40-foot and 20-foot cranes, gimbals, drones, lenses, action cameras, and more, all at competitive prices. Whether you need a high-end cinema camera for a feature film shoot, specialized lighting equipment for a music video, or audio gear for a podcast, we've got you covered. And with our easy online booking system, you can reserve the gear you need in just a few clicks. Check us out online at sgpstudios.com.
She's unstoppable. She's got the power.
She says so. We're continuing our conversation with Sita Kuruvilla, the chairman of the TTSPCA. This organization has now come into mainstream conversations, and it's because of people like Sita, women and men who volunteer their time. But today we're talking about her story. Sita, you know, I joked and I said, I don't know whether I'm so dedicated to any cause. And I have to say, someone that gets involved in this kind of work, there must be some personal values or some compass within you that is more selfless than most people. What do you think is your guiding principle that kind of gravitates to this work?
I think I always felt empathy for the downtrodden, whether it was people or animals. And animals, to me, seem to be on the real lowest rung of the ladder. You know, they have no real rights or recourse. They're really considered by many just to be property and disposable property as well. So I think it's really just a strong feeling of empathy for the plight of animals. And you know, the thing with animals, I mean, like with us, we can pack a bag of food and a bottle of water and go our way. With an animal, there's nothing they can take with them. They live from day to day, and it can be a very hard life.
Volunteerism, which is really the core and the heart of what you do. You mentioned that a lot of young people now are starting things up. Is it only people in the particular realm of, let's say, the sciences who do biology, animal welfare, or subjects related to that you find gravitating to it, or is it more and more people are just getting involved?
Oh no, it's a whole range of people. Now there are a lot of NGOs and groups that have developed over the years. And apart from that, there are lots of people like who come to volunteer at our shelter. In fact, we have so many applications for volunteers that we can't even cope with it. And they come from all walks of life. and all ages. In fact, we even have a arrangement with Mukarapo Secondary, which is right next door to us. And they send this lovely group of young people over on a Monday. And I mean, it's been wonderful to see the evolution, because some of the children had never had contact with animals before and were even terrified of them. And after several visits now, they're just loving to have contact and play with the animals. And I think it's recognized too that for young people, especially some that are sort of isolated or have difficulty dealing with others, that a contact with animals is really beneficial, because they get a sort of emotional attachment and affection with no strings attached.
You know, when you see, I have to do, I was like, I asked about what about your value system, but when you were younger, please, you talked about your line of study and what you did and being a marine biologist, but what about it has to be something in your childhood that shaped this sort of career path and then what you do now?
Well, I had 3 brothers, so I had very outdoor kind of life. It wasn't, it was mostly out and about with the boys and so on. But as far as our home life goes, it was a very secure home life and childhood. And my father was a very much, he didn't tolerate violence. Well, he was a pediatrician.
Oh, okay.
And so it was a home life, although there were 4 of us and we didn't always get along. There was never any violence, and there was always, my parents always believed in sort of social justice. So not that we spoke about that a lot, but that was just the general feeling in the household and the attitude that you had to life in general and so on. So I think just coming from that, I guess I just had an empathy for animals or for people having a hard time.
When people say to you, you obviously have brought the conversation about animal welfare into the mainstream, but a lot of people still need a lot of convincing. They're going to say, well, there's so many problems in this country, why am I fighting for this? And even corporate entities, I can give my CSR to an entity that can give me more mileage, more marketing, more bang for my marketing dollar. How do you then change that mindset?
It's not that easy, because we have approached a lot of corporate entities for funding, and it's difficult to promote animal welfare in that sector, unless you look at it more in the terms of community development. It's kind of like, also the environment, for example. It's about really creating an environment or a country in which, we feel more at peace. So if you care for your environment around you, and that includes the animals within it and the people, of course, you are creating a sort of gentler environment and a kinder environment.
What are some of the pieces of legislation or the changes you'd like to see in our country in relation to animal welfare and just generally the way we look at this sphere?
Well, we have a number of pieces of legislation that have been proclaimed in the last 10 years. Some of them are more useful than others. Some require a lot more work. More recently, in 2020, we finally got animal welfare included into an amended piece of legislation piloted by the Ministry of Agriculture. We worked with a committee in the ministry on the development of standards of welfare for a range of animals, but that we are still awaiting those standards to be drafted as regulations. So we have the elements there.
Do you think there's a drive, and I come back to is there the political will, or do we need more of society to make more noise?
We need more of society to make more noise.
Yeah.
Really, we have the elements there, but we have no real means of enforcing the legislation, and we have very little of the support structures in place that's needed for it to be effective.
We take a short break. When we come back, we continue our conversation with Sita Kuruvilla, a woman who has dedicated the majority of her day and also her life for building awareness around animal welfare. But we find out a little more about her on a personal side, her hobbies, her home life. What does she do outside this organization?
Are you looking for a customizable studio space with green and white screen cyclorama and professional production equipment to carry out your next big project? SGP Studios is the perfect fit for you. TNT's largest studio space with an overhead lighting grid and sound treated, perfect for television commercials, music videos, television programs, social media content, and film productions. We also have a wide range of production equipment available for rental. You can choose from a selection of Netflix approved cameras, modern lighting equipment, professional audio gear, 40-foot and 20-foot cranes, gimbals, drones, lenses, action cameras, and more, all at competitive prices. Whether you need a high-end cinema camera for a feature film shoot, specialized lighting equipment for a music video, or audio gear for a podcast, we've got you covered. And with our easy online booking system, you can reserve the gear you need in just a few clicks. Check us out online at sgpstudios.com.
SNS Passage Supermarket comes to St. Mary's Freeport with the wide aisles of variety, quality you can trust, a community hub, and loyalty rewards. When I say they have everything from your fresh produce, your wines and spirits, your butcher meat, seafood, bakery, you name it, they have it. And with these prices, trust me, you're guaranteed to save some money in your pocket. So come on down and shop today at the brand new SNS Passage Supermarket, St. Mary's Freeport.
The best birthday gifts are at thebesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola, Lego, Nerf, and remote control vehicles, kids learning desks and educational toys, ride-ons, bikes, drones, science toys, and board games and puzzles, and a wide range of baby items. We also have the best devices for school, like laptops, the Amazon Fire 7 tablet, the Amazon Fire 8, 10, and Kids Edition tabs, as well as cases and accessories.
Visit us in store at First Floor Movie Town Port of Spain, Forces Flagship Maspin, Eastgate Mall Trin City, M6 Plaza Endeavour, or shop online now at dbesttoys.com. We have the best toys at the best prices.
She's unstoppable. She's got the power.
She says so. Sita Kuruvilla is our guest as we continue conversations with women who are changing the shape of our society. Sita, you know, I did make a joke about what do you really do in your person? Because everyone knows you as a TTSPCA lady, and if there's a problem, you give a call. Do you have hobbies? What do you do to balance this life?
Well, when you asked me that question, when you sent me that question, I thought, oh my God, I don't have any hobbies. Well, I'll tell you, I used to love to hike with a group of friends because there's nothing more relaxing than being out in
Outdoors.
nature. And I love swimming, and you know, I used to like scuba diving and things like that. I don't do that anymore. And I like reading and so on. But so, I mean, those were the other things that I did.
You know, a lot of times we have conversations with women who really do selfless service, whether it is to the business community, their jobs, animals. It comes from a support system at home. And you also talk about your husband, your partner. Does your husband understand, appreciate the time, the effort, all that? Is he part of this journey with you?
He does. He's always been he's always been very supportive. I mean, he gets fed up sometimes because it does impinge on your life quite a bit. And you know, there's also sometimes concerns if you're pelting out in the middle of the night to try and deal with something. But he's always understood from the time we got married, really, that you know that I was particularly devoted towards animal welfare. And then he had quite a busy career. So he was pretty busy with his work and I was busy with mine.
So there's
it-
an understanding that we both are busy.
there was an understanding. We used to try at least get away for holidays periodically and travel a bit and that kind of thing. So that was the time when we get to spend some time together without too many
Too many
other-
busyness coming in.
Yes.
But your marriage has survived. So obviously you have a secret to success that many people are lacking these days. What advice would you have for anyone who wants to get involved in animal welfare?
Well, I think, first of all, volunteering is, it introduces you to the world of animal welfare and the kinds of things that have to be done. Really, I would like to see us develop a mentoring program going forward as we are getting a little more organized, because I think that's how I learned. I started volunteering and then I was absorbed into the management side of things. So I think if people are interested, they can start off by volunteering or assisting in some way. There are different ways that you can assist through fostering in your home, volunteering at a shelter, participating, let's say, in fundraisers, or even taking part in, let's say, activism in some way. So there are different options, and there's lots of room for people to come in and assist.
What are your personal goals for the organization? Every time a leader comes in and you sit in the capacity as chairman, where do you want to see the organization go, and what do you want your legacy to be?
Well, we had wanted, when we came in, and our group had taken over again in 2019 when the last council retired. We really wanted to see the TTSPCA become like a model organization for animal welfare and a model shelter using best practice, a model for shelters throughout the country. But really what we would like to see is a structure in place in the country that, a structure that moves the whole aspect of animal welfare forward. Because NGOs can only do so much, and you're just fighting against the tide. What we really need to see in place, and what I would love my legacy to be, is proper legislation in place and a proper structure to care for, to ensure that animal welfare is sustainable. I don't want us to just be forever, doing the same thing over and over again. So really what we're pushing for is to try to get, we want a dog control plan for the country. And that's what we now actually started working with the Ministry of Local Government on that.
Does it get frustrating? And I have to ask you, because working with an NGO is particularly tough. It is not high-flying corporate. It is not, a million people at your door waiting to make it easier for you. Is it?
It is frustrating because we have tremendous demands on the organization. I mean, our phones ring continuously. People are always at the door. People want help all the time. We struggle with funding. It can be extremely frustrating. And the thing is, the expectations that the public has for what the TSPCA can do for them are often not realistic, because we have no legal authority. So we get a lot of requests for assistance that and people send us all this information and videos and terrible stories, that we want, and we want to help. But we sometimes just don't have the capacity. So that is why we keep, pushing for the government to make changes and to implement legislation and improve the laws that we already have in place.
We've touched on so many aspects of your life, and as we come to a close, what advice would you have for young women out there? You have managed to find your voice in a very public area, because I have seen, even before this rule with the TTSPCA, you with the Animal Welfare Network, holding Trinidad and Tobago to task, raising awareness. What advice would you have for young women out there who want to find their voice?
Well, I think actually that a lot of young women, I find the young women have really come forward, and I think that they need to be sure of of themselves. They need to speak up for themselves. And I think that I actually think it's changed so much, because when you look at the animal welfare world, it is predominantly women who are moving it forward. It is predominantly women, and they have come out very strongly in support, and their activism has grown. And I do think that there are a lot of examples now out there. So I think that I don't think that young women are going to have a problem in the future.
Definitely something. And who shaped you? You know, when you talk about people who inspire your journey or who shaped your personality and you found your strength from, who were those persons?
Well, I was very, I think my initial contact with a group of volunteers with the TSPCA, that inspired me. And then also there were many women out there in the field of animal behavior or animal welfare, like Jane Goodall and Ingrid Newkirk, who heads the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals and so on. They just took on some of the worst aspects of animal welfare internationally. And I think women like that were quite an inspiration.
Sita, thank you for sharing your story.
Thanks.
And, you know, we continue to applaud the work that you do because it is so needed. Well, I want to invite Trinidad and Tobago to definitely look out for more episodes on She Says So. And we continue to carry the stories and conversations with women who are shifting the way we view professions and also the way we operate as a society.
She's taking control.